Thandi is a close, very, very close friend of AIMS. She has been instrumental since 2008 with the establishment of our research center across the road. And currently she serves as a council member. So to me, Thandi, she's an inspirational role model, and I believe she's also a role model to other young Africans out there. Please help me welcome Thandi on stage.
Well, thank you very much, Rejoice, for that kind introduction. It's lovely to be at AIMS, as always. My heart warms up when I'm at AIMS because I just remember the first meeting I had with Barry at Stellenbosch University when Barry was transitioning, coming here, taking over from Fritz Hahn. And we were talking about how to beef up AIMS and get the mathematics section that deals with South African students and how we must get them in. And now we're here and the research center establishment. So Barry, we've got lovely memories about this place. And now I'm at the NRF again. I left the NRF and I came back, and I'm inviting AIMS to come talk to us again for the future of AIMS. So I will have a meeting with Neil. So before I get there, I can get carried away about this. Let's get to the session. My name is Thandi Mgwebi. Thank you very much, Rejoice, for introducing me. And I'm only a facilitator for this session. We've got a lovely panel that's going to deal with the future of mathematical sciences. And at the NRF, the group executive position that I'm holding now for business advancement is responsible for global partnerships, but also for business development. Global partnerships in the sense that we support, together with the DSI, strategic projects like these, and strategic projects that are impactful. And you may have heard in the news that the president has announced a 1 billion rand initiative for PhDs, and we are working towards that. So I'm inviting you all to come up with ideas of cohort models to build the African continent, and particularly with mathematical sciences. So as we heard this morning from the learners and from Professor Jonathan Jansen, there are a lot of challenges. But these challenges, I don't think they are insurmountable. I think it requires a mindset change. It requires people who've got the passion, people who are not just doing their jobs, but they are driven by the passion to build the African continent, but also to build bridges. And we want to deal with this through this panel to talk about these challenges. And I'm inviting the panelists to come up to the stage while I'm introducing them, but I'm going to give it to them to talk about what they do and what institutions are they coming from. If I may invite Professor Kerstin Jordaan to come forward. And Professor Zurab, Janelidze, and Professor Loyiso Nongxa. I was saying to Professor Nongxa, I don't know what he's representing because he carries so many hats, but he's going to tell us. And Professor Francesco Petruccione, please welcome my panelists. So there are a couple of challenges that we need to address. One of these is targeting the most talented learners and providing them with the resources and support they need to excel in mathematics. Learners like these ones we saw this morning, and many others that we can't reach. You can imagine the spread of talent throughout this continent. You see it when you travel the continent. You see it when you engage with grassroots innovators throughout the continent. Another challenge is upskilling teachers, especially those in remote areas, and empowering them to teach mathematics to their learners effectively. I think this is what Professor Jonathan Jansen was saying today. The third one is a need to bridge the gap between school mathematics and mathematics in higher education. and address the challenges faced by stakeholders in the higher education system. But one important consideration includes providing cutting-edge mathematical science education, building and strengthening capacity on the African continent. So we are now going to ask Professor Kerstin Jordaan to introduce yourself and what you do and what will be your topic today.
Okay, I'm on, I think. So, should I just introduce myself now?
Yes, please.
Okay. I am the part-time executive director of the South African Mathematics Foundation. And I'm going to explain to you just now briefly the type of things that we do. But I would like to just broaden that. Can I go up there?
No, I just want introduction at the moment, and then I'll come back and give you the...
It's not just about targeting the most talented learners, but it's actually, when I was looking this morning, when these primary school girls started singing, I got really emotional. And it wasn't just the beautiful rhythm and the movement and the clapping and the singing. It was that I suddenly just realized that a lot of what I do, you get so busy that you lose focus of why you're really doing it. And I'm really doing what I do because of the potential that's here and developing that potential. And it was so clear this morning. Each of those young girls, and there's millions, thousands of them all over the country, and they all deserve the best opportunity. And that's why we all do what we do, and that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, right. And now, Professor Zurab, Janelidze.
Thank you so much. I'm serving currently as the president of the South African Mathematical Society. Thank you very much for having me here. And by the way, congratulations to AIMS. It's been absolutely amazing journey, the celebration of the birthday. So my topic is bridging school mathematics and mathematics in higher education. I think we talk about this a lot. The presentation this morning by Professor Jonathan Jansen was very eye-opening, and we talk about these things also in the corridors and so on, but then something happens, and this conversation doesn't seem to come across in the actions, maybe locally, but not globally, not enough. And we still have huge challenges in the system, and one of them indeed is the bridge between school and university, and also later on from first year to second year and so on.
Right. Professor Nongxa?
I'm Loyiso Nongxa, and my friends here will say I'm Professor Loyiso, so I'm waiting to pronounce my surname. I'm a pensioner, I'm retired. If I were to use the analogy of football, you play in normal time, and then there's injury time. Now, in my case, I didn't hear the end whistle, and I'm still playing the game. About 7 years ago, we started a network, a grassroots network called the National Graduate Academy for the Mathematical and Statistical Sciences. And our strapline is securing the future of the mathematical sciences. And really, where we focus was the future of the mathematical sciences is on postgraduate students and early career academics. Those are the people who are going to be playing leadership positions by the middle of this century. Recently, maybe about a year ago, we established another network that I'll talk about later on, called the Mathematical Sciences Strategic Alliance, really to try and pull together the different strands of what is happening across the country into a coherent plan in order to move forward.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Professor Francesco?
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, my happy birthday to AIMS. My name is Francesco Petruccione, and I'm here in my capacity as the interim director of NITEX, which is the National Institute for Theoretical and Computational Sciences. And according to plan, the interim structure should finish in 1 week's time. Yeah, so I hope it's not an April's Fool joke. But That's what the plan is.
Right.
And NITEX is a new national research institute, which essentially has been set up to support the theoretical and computational aspects of basic sciences. Yeah, it grew out of the old National Institute for Theoretical Physics, but now it supports also astrophysics, mathematics, statistics, data science, quantitative aspects of biology and bioinformatics, quantitative finance, and Earth system and climate change modeling. Yeah? And the basic idea of NITEX is that these 8 disciplines shouldn't live parallel existence. Yeah? We want them to speak to each other and work together to solve challenging problems. And mathematical sciences are essentially the backbone that holds it all together. Yeah? And in that spirit, I think that I'm here.
Yes,
Thank you.
And I'm leaving the best introduction for last, Miss Mmampei Chaba. I've put a chair here for you, that's why I'm calling you last. Mmampei is a supporter of the science ecosystem. She's been serving at the DSI as long as I can remember. And she's Chief Director, Multilateral Cooperation and Africa in the South African Department of Science and Innovation. And Mmampei, please introduce yourself and your topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mgwebi. As introduced, I've been at the DSI for the last 20 years. Actually, this is my 20th year this month. And I'm responsible for multilateral and Africa partnerships. So we work with the South African system to advance STI in Africa and globally. So we work with the UN family of organizations, with South-South partnerships, and we currently have about 26 official science and tech agreements in the continent. So I'll speak about building capacity in Africa. Thanks, Thandi.
Then if I can start with you, Kerstin, about your topic. And I'm just referring back to what Professor Jonathan said. And that education, or maths education, is a human right. And we can create a sense of not belonging when we don't exercise that right. How do we create belonging in mathematics education spaces? But referring to your topic.
How do you
Create belonging. Because when the right is not exercised, with all those challenges that have been explained, children feel a sense of not belonging because you do not understand, and you are humiliated, you are embarrassed, and we need to do something. And your topic is addressing that we need to do. How do we target the brightest minds, the most talented, and what strategies can we use?
Okay. So you want me to answer the question and not do my presentation?
You will do it in your presentation, yes.
Okay, so can I come there or do I sit
Yes,
here?
it's up to you. It's up to
Okay. Now, yeah, I just need somebody to then do the slides for me.
It's
I
here.
can sit here. Okay.
you. I can do it for you, whatever you want.
Just give me the pointer, then I'll do it here. Okay. Thanks. Is it going to? There we go. So, the Maths Foundation was created in 2004, if any of you want to do the maths, with AIM's 20th birthday. That should give you an idea what birthday we're celebrating. But so who are we? We are coming together of the South African Mathematics Society. Zurab is its current president, and the Association for Mathematics Educators, which is a much larger society actually, representing teachers, mainly teachers in South Africa, maths teachers, and also people in mathematics education at universities. So the two entities came together to try and solve some of the problems, work together to solve the problems that we have in mathematics and mathematics education. 20 years down the road, we've worked very hard, but there still are many problems. But the entity exists of it's a non-government or non-profit organization, and we started with SAMF and MSSA on our board, and then also the main departments, government departments involved in the pipelines, so basic education, higher education and training, and then science and innovation. Also on our board are various professional organizations represented, such as the Actuarial Society and the Chartered Accountants profession. Soon we'll have the engineering profession also represented on the board. Professional accountants also. But over the years, we've grown the Learned Society component. So apart from SAMS and AMISA, it's now SASA, the Statistics Association, and then there's the Operations Research Society and the Gravity Society. So they do cosmology and astrophysics, and also some parastatals, which I'm not going to list all of them now. So what do? I see this as not showing properly, but we work in, I think we try and do advocacy, right? And I'll explain one of the projects that we do. We do learner development, we do teacher development, and then we also do some research in what works. Although that research is not mathematics research, it's research in education and what works. An example of the research would be MSSA every year writes a report on the matric exams, and government really, really values that report and peruses it and takes action on what that report recommends. Right, so advocacy, so this is one example of what we do. So learners need to know about careers in mathematics, and we have a careers in mathematics booklet. Sometimes it's printed, if we can find funding for it, but it's as an ebook. It's always available on our website, and it highlights all modern careers and also younger people in those careers. And it's very interesting to go and look at it. We update it every now and again. So that's showcasing careers in mathematics at school. Then our main projects can be described in terms of this graph, starting on, that's the left side. So primary school, we have the South African Mathematics Challenge. High school, we do Olympiads and team competitions, and we have the Siyakhula training program. How was that click? It's wrong, hey?
6 out of 10.
Okay. I tried though. Normally I say Siyakhula. And then at university, we also do the South African Tertiary Maths Olympiad. And we have international participation at both the secondary school and the high school and the university level. And then we also, quite recently, it's something I initiated in the last 6 years, was teacher professional development and teacher problem-solving courses. The problem-solving course, we expanded it a lot. So in terms of the Olympiads and competitions, I'm just going to highlight, we're most well known for the South African Maths Olympiad, but the South African Maths Challenge has actually been in existence since the 1960s. It was started by the Association of Mathematics Educators, and it's very well known. So even if I meet friends of my children when they were still a bit younger, and I would say I'm involved with the Maths Challenge, they say, oh, the MSSA Maths Challenge, yes, I did that. And so it reaches currently not enough learners. Only, if you think we have 26,000 schools, we're reaching about, all right, but that's high school and primary school. So I think the number for primary school is about 15,000 schools, but we're reaching only up to about 1,000 schools, about 80,000 learners. So this is targeting, not just targeting talented learners, it's trying to promote the discipline of mathematics in terms of the joy of solving problems, non-conventional problems using ideas that are not necessarily what you learned at school. And that is what we try and promote in there. And really, competitions and Olympiads like this, although they are competitively based, are the most cost-effective way to reach many, many learners. So that's what we do. I've shown some graphics of our gender representation and our racial representation over the last years. It's a little bit small. The graph on the right there will show you that Gauteng and Western Cape still have the highest participation, but we do have coverage all over the country, and we try and improve on that all the time. So apart from this competition, I've shown you about the others. What we've started this year is also, we started it on a very small scale last year, but many of the international people will know about the kangaroo. international competition, maths competition run in many countries. I can't remember the exact number. We are now offering that not as a competition in South Africa. It's being written today internationally. So our Olympiads and challenge were written last week. So we can't do another competition today. It's too close. So in terms of the semesters, it would be confusing if there was another international competition just a week after our national competitions. So what we chose to do is we're offering the kangaroo over an extended period, making the questions available to teachers free of charge, that they can use it as enrichment activities in their schools. Then, in terms of our learner development, we have a program called Siyakhula Learner Development, which really aims to develop learners that perform well in the Olympiad. So that's really for the talented learners that have shown true potential to achieve fantastically high. It's quite an expensive program. We are struggling with funding for it at the moment, but it's supposed to be running in 30 centers across the countries. It has currently been running only at universities, so at about 9 centers. Then this is just an example of one of our teacher development initiatives. So when I started in my executive role at the Maths Foundation, I wanted to do more for teacher development, but I'm a firm believer in not reinventing the wheel. And I looked around and knew about what AIM's school enrichment program was doing, and I knew that they had good courses developed that can be offered like a summer school for teachers and at various levels that develops content knowledge. And we partnered with them, and we've run quite a few courses together. Then in terms of SAMF developed course, we have a very wonderful online 6-week course. It used to be just a 2-day course, but we expanded it with very interactive, with tutor interventions, etc. And it's I get fantastic feedback for this one, and it's really not expensive to run. We can do a cohort of 700. We've done up to 700 to 900 teachers at a time that do this course, and that provide tremendous benefit. Because you see, the thing is, you can't ask teachers to enroll their learners for Olympiads and competitions if the teachers feel they can't solve the problems themselves. So this is really aimed at showing the teachers the fun of problem solving and how that can enhance what they do in the classroom. Then finally, okay, I had the wrong slide. I'm sorry. All right. So in summary, this is just a little bit of the stats that we do, but I see the slides of the page, so I'm going to go here. So what we do in terms of developing talent, I hear stories like this all the time, stories like this, Musa Dlovu, that discovered the joy of mathematics and the potential that he had for mathematics by being involved in the challenge and the Olympiad. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't have become a chartered accountant if he hadn't done the competitions, but possibly it just showed him that he really could reach that kind of level and exposed him to things. That's what he's saying, right? It exposed him to the joy of that. And lastly, in closing, so we run the International Maths Olympiad team for South Africa, and we have various development teams that we send to things like the Pan-African Congress. And we're working very hard at transforming the face of our team. And so in light of the learners that we saw here this morning, I know this is going back a few years, it's 2020, but I wanted to show you this young man who's studying at UCT, he might be finished by now, Mmampei from Soweto, who performed well in our Olympiad, and he became involved in the Siyakhula Learner Development Center that we had at WITS, and he became the first African to ever win a medal at the International Mathematics Olympiad. And I would love to see more of them, but that year our team had 2 African learners. We haven't been that successful since then, but right, we're trying to develop that more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kerstin. Thank you. We will come back to the questions, but now I would like to invite the second speaker. Zurab, please go ahead. If you'd like to come here for a presentation, you're welcome to.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. I don't have any slides, so I'll probably stay here. There is a mathematician called Gauss. We all know of him. He's considered to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest mathematician. I guess an example of what nowadays we like to call a genius. I mean, he was actually genius in the sense that he had mathematical talent from very early on. There's a famous story about how he added numbers from 1 to 100 when he was in school. Do you know what he says about what it takes to have an insight in mathematics? So he says something like this, that anyone who would contemplate on mathematical truths as deeply and as continuously as I have would make my discoveries. Now, how does that fit with the concept of a genius? Well, maybe it takes a genius to say something like that. But if we believe that he is genius, then we should also believe what he says. And basically what he says is that anyone can be genius. And what it takes, so he says more than that, what it takes to gain insight in mathematics and to make wonderful discoveries is the opportunity to engage deeply with the subject. And unfortunately, this is something that was extremely well addressed in this morning's keynote speech of Professor Jensen. Unfortunately, we seem to rush all the time, at school, at university, through covering different content and so on. I mean, to some extent, even Olympiads is about rushing because you have to solve these problems in a finite amount of time. We never seem to give opportunity to children to contemplate on mathematics at a deeper level without the pressure of time. Now, how does that tie with my topic? Well, one of the things you can ask first-year students, those who want to study mathematics or some other mathematical disciplines, is to solve an equation. X plus 5 equals 7. What is x? They tell you it's 2. Then you give them a different equation. X equals 3. Can you solve? And you can run this experiment with your students. So most of them will tell you that you can't. And the rest of them will tell you that it doesn't have a solution. Now, why is that? Because solving an equation for them is applying a procedure that brings you to an expression that's of the form x equals something. So if you start with an expression that already says x equals something, then you cannot apply this procedure because there's nothing to do. We already at the. But moreover, because you can't solve it, it doesn't have a solution. So actually, they don't really understand the concept of a solution. For them, solution is something you get after applying a procedure. So if you didn't apply the procedure, then you cannot have a solution. Then once you tell them that actually, if we look at the definition of what a solution is, x equals 3 is the solution of x equals 3. It's the unique value of a unique real number that satisfies the equation x equals 3. And then you ask them another question. How do you know that there is no other value? Well, maybe you ask them this for the original equation. 5 minus x equals 3. x equals 2, right? Now, how do we know that there is no other x for which 5 minus x would equal 3? They can't answer that. Even the top Olympiad students in the second year, they think about this for a while. What does that show? I will not say anything new here than what Professor Jensen already said. It shows that mathematics is taught in a way where we train them to write exams. We train them to solve Olympiad problems. And in fact, you can achieve a lot by intensive training. And I wish we had more opportunity for better training to get better results internationally. I mean, it's difficult to financially, it's not so. So that's fine. I mean, training is fine. But when do we train them to understand mathematics? We don't. And because they don't understand what they're doing, because they can solve those questions you give them because they've seen these questions before and you've shown them what steps to take to arrive to the answer. When they move from school to university, they're lost. Because now at university, the problems are different from what they've seen at school. Moreover, there is much less of explicit training. They have to think for themselves in the first year. When they move to the second year, the same problem. One thing that we underestimate, I think, a lot is the importance of subconscious thinking in mathematics. If any one of you have either worked with a proof assistant software or had an opportunity to develop one on your own, which is a fantastic experience, I highly recommend it. Take very simple mathematical argument, for example, the one that solves an equation, and code it to the level of basic logical rules. You will get lines of steps. And these lines of steps are organized in a hierarchical structure. They form a tree where you enter into a node, into a child node, once you begin with a new assumption. And so they're computationally, the things that we think are easy, computationally are actually extremely complex. How are we able to, our children, how are they able to even learn the algorithms? Because somehow our mind subconsciously is able to do extremely complicated things without understanding what's going on. We can do that. We're like those computers that you use for machine learning. The computer doesn't understand the problem, but it can solve it because you trained it to solve it. But to think mathematically, you need to have this ability of creating these hierarchical structures of mathematical reasoning in your subconscious mind. And not just copying the method that was given to you. And this kind of training is something that's missing at school, it's missing at the first year, it's missing in the second year. We never teach them the basics of reasoning. So either it's there, either the student naturally has talent for reasoning, or is out of the system. And in fact, we hope to encounter students who have this natural talent, so we try to teach a lot in a course because we want them we want to give opportunity to those who do have talent to do a lot of mathematics. But then the rest of the 99% of the class, in order so that they also pass, we give them questions in the exam that are almost identical to the tutorial problems or the questions we did in class. I've met a number of excellent postgraduate students at Stellenbosch University who've gone on studying PhD in various different countries, and some of them at very prestigious universities around the world. They speak to me about the regurgitation that happens, not only at school, at university. And this is not specific to Stellenbosch University. I think kind of the solution to the problem of bridging the gap from school to university is to reflect on our teaching. And that's also what Jonathan suggested to us. Do we actually teach mathematics well enough? And I think we don't. Because we are used to teaching, we kind of traditionally, with our mindset, we're very good at teaching mathematics to those who already understand it very well. Because it's very easy to teach such a student mathematics. You just give them a book, they read it, and then they tell you what they read, and you tell them, well done, this is fantastic. But we need to learn, because mathematics is becoming such an important part of our culture, we need to learn how to teach those who do not have this subconscious ability to process mathematics naturally. And let me end off this presentation that I'm giving now with a comparison. Let's compare mathematics. There's actually a lot of similarities between the two. So, specifically, the ability to sing. I've recently, I mean, from my childhood, I haven't been able to sing at all. My musical pitch understanding has been always 0. And so I wondered now, if I'm expecting my students to learn mathematics from 0, maybe I should try to teach myself singing from 0. And in the first 2 years, what happens is that you make the sounds and you think that they are correct sounds. Because you have this emotion that you want to convey with your song, but what comes out of your mouth is very different to what you intended. You know? There is something physical that needs to happen in here, which can only, some muscles need to form in a certain way, which can only happen through practice and practice and practice, before what you want to say, what you want to sing and what you actually sing will start to correlate with each other. So when a child writes mathematics, and we read nonsense sometimes, and we think that this child is stupid, the child is not stupid. The child needs a deeper level of learning. So here's a challenge. Can you teach someone who doesn't have a natural ability to sing? If you can, then you can also do it in mathematics. And I think in both cases, people's perception is that we can't. And I suggest we try our best to see if we can, maybe. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Nongxa, challenges of stakeholders in higher education. You can use mine. You may use mine. Please. Oh.
Okay. Thank you very much. I was asked to talk about the challenges of stakeholders in higher education. And I'll be parochial and focus on South Africa. You'll forgive me, but possibly these things apply in other systems as well. My first disclaimer is that what I'm going to say reinforces the presentations by Bruce Watson yesterday as well as Kerstin. Because sometimes people say that now we're hearing a new story, what's happening. I mean, just one answer to the challenges of stakeholders is that we operate in a very complex environment where sometimes it's difficult to see how what you do contributes to national priorities. So it's characterized by complexity. And it's not that difficult maybe to explain that. Going back to the 2020 theme of the International Day for Mathematics, the theme was mathematics are everywhere. So I'm talking about the mathematical sciences. Now what this means is that all of us have a view about mathematics, have a view about what is supposed to happen. And in some of the cases, these strategies and opinions reinforce each other, and in some instances, they are in conflict. So that's one challenge that we face. Basically, amongst many things, we would like to create an enabling environment in such a way that the future of the mathematical sciences can thrive. And in introducing myself, I said that the future of the mathematical sciences, amongst other things, are the people who are pursuing postgraduate studies, as well as those who are starting their careers in mathematics. So that's what we want to do. Now, we need a plan or a roadmap with some milestones so that we can determine whether we're making progress or not. And if we're not making progress, then we need to recalibrate. But immediately one talks about a plan, some of the people in the mathematical sciences communities will push back against that and say that mathematics comes from the bottom. In fact, I was talking to a professor from Germany yesterday, and that's essentially what he was saying. So that's another challenge. Now, in June last year, the presidents of the learned societies, South African Mathematical Society and the Statistical Association, with the support of NIFEX, we convened at Stellenbosch under the theme, Towards a National Strategy for the Mathematical Sciences. Now, one could immediately say that when you talk about a national strategy, that is the purview of government. So maybe it would be sending out a signal that somehow we're saying that maybe government hasn't done it and so on and so forth. And I want to put on record that there are many plans that are in place that can be used as building blocks in this roadmap. The main purpose is that we want to address the fragmentation in the landscape. Look at all the things that are happening and knit them into a coherent plan that all these parties, whether it's a school, whether it's teachers, whether it's students, whether it's government, whether it's business, NGOs and so on, that they can relate to. Now, we formed an alliance, and an alliance, I mean, in South Africa, we have many alliances. There's the tripartite alliance of the ANC and COSATU and the SACP. There's a recent alliance, the multi-party charter for something, I can't remember. So I formed this alliance of existing bodies, which one could say is informal, it's not a legal structure. Now, who are the members of this alliance? First of all, are the three entities that were mentioned by Bruce and Kerstin yesterday, Mass Foundation, the COE, and an entity that I referred to, we call the Graduate Academy for the Mathematical and Statistical Sciences. The second category are all the academic societies and associations. You've heard about some of them, AMISA, SAMF, and SASA. The third category is AIMS. And we had a debate about, this is an institution, does this mean that we're going to allow the institutions to be members? And the elegant response was that AIMS is not just an institution, it is a network. It is a network that gives us a footprint into the rest of the continent. The fourth one is NIFEX, that he is going to talk about, National Institute for Theoretical and Computational Sciences. And lastly, within South Africa, we call it USAF, Universities South Africa, which is the association of all the public universities in South Africa. Now, within that, there's a community of practice for teaching and learning in mathematics. It's about 11 bodies. When we met, again, a workshop convened by SAMF, the immediate response was most of these entities, if not all of them, are university-centric, right? There's no involvement maybe by teachers, there's no involvement, we acknowledge that. But there's a good reason. If we're going to, not a good reason, one can explain it in this way. If you're going to talk about a national strategy for the mathematical sciences in South Africa, it's something from the cradle to the grave, right? Now, I had forgotten that, in fact, as far back as 2001, there's a national strategy for mathematics, science, and technology education, right? And this was reviewed just recently, maybe about 2018. So now the reviewed national strategy for mathematics, science, and technology education, 2019 to 2030. So it covers the schooling system, and we already have that pillar in place. And therefore, what is missing in terms of a concrete document, a plan, is something that covers the university system all the way up to my stage when you are looking at the end, which is not that far ahead. Now, some of the building blocks of such a plan, or all of them maybe, one could say that in the immediate future, they are in place. There's a national development plan, which is, will be, I think its life is 2030. There is the new Science, Technology, and Innovation 10-year plan, which I think was issued in 2022 or 2023. Now, these are just about the Department of Science and Innovation. There's a whole range of priorities that apply to the Department of Higher Education and Training with regard to addressing the legacy of apartheid, university capacity development, et cetera, et cetera. So what is required, therefore, is that we simply collect all these bricks and build a roadmap for what maybe we should be doing up to 2030. Now, it's one thing to have a plan. The other one is a vehicle to deliver that plan. Kerstin yesterday gave a suggestion about a part of that vehicle, or the whole vehicle, about now delivering on the plan. SAMF is active at the schooling level, not exclusively so. Then there's the Center of Excellence, and then there's the National Graduate Academy. Lastly, what we want to say is that mathematics is very important. Mathematics is omnipresent. Mathematics touches on many aspects of South African society. It is a powerful tool for South African society to respond to the challenges of the 21st century. And we saw this with the COVID pandemic, when people were using mathematics in terms of modeling, et cetera, et cetera. So we are saying that we need a national identity for the mathematical sciences, whereby government, universities, schools, the private sector, the NGOs can work together and align their plans in terms of where they overlap. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Nongxa. I'm going to move swiftly to Professor Francisco, Interim Director for NITEX, speaking on cutting-edge mathematical science provisioning.
Thank you very much for reminding me of the topic. Sorry, thank you very much. So I'm here representing NITEX, and NITEX is the new kid on the block because its first birthday will be the coming 1st of April. Yeah, we've been operating for 3 years almost in an interim phase, setting it slowly up. And this interim phase was very useful to test and experiment a little bit because NITEX, as I mentioned previously, is a new national research institute covering essentially all the theoretical and computational aspects of the basic sciences, including mathematics, statistics, and all the mathematical sciences. Yeah? It's important to realize that NITEX is a consortium of essentially all universities in South Africa. One is missing, but we will bring them on board, yeah? And AIMS. Yeah? And we have already, we are supposed to operate in 5 nodes. Yeah? NITEP, the old NITEP had 3. Now we will have 5, which means that we will include a node encompassing the Eastern Cape and the Free State, and one encompassing all the northern provinces on top of the existing ones in the Western Cape, in Gauteng, and in KwaZulu-Natal. Yeah? We have already a network of more than 200 associates operating out of this network of university and nodes. And and I forgot to say that the nodes will be formed by branches. Yeah? We stole the terminology from the banking sector. Yeah? So each university will have an NITEX node. So it will really be a structure, a kind of a fractal structure that goes into every corner of academia in the country, and AIMS is one of the partners in this operation. Yeah? So this is a very important aspect, because I think we never had an institution like that before in South Africa that embraces all universities in the country. Yeah? And that is very important, because such a structure can only be successful if we all embrace some basic principles, yeah, of collaboration and sharing. Yeah? So NITEX is a big promoter of all things open science, yeah, because without embracing those concepts and that way of doing science, NITEX will not have a bright future. Yeah? So the philosophical challenge of, also the sociological challenge of NITEX is to bring all these partners on board and convince them that embracing the NITEX concept is what is good for their community. Yeah? So what is also important to understand, so NITEX supports 8 disciplines, yeah? And I listed them before. Yeah? But we want these disciplines to work together, yeah? Because we don't want to have a structure that has 8 parallel existences of independent disciplines. Yeah? We want them to work together in addressing the big challenges that South Africa faces, that Africa faces, that the world faces, and at the end of the day, they're always the same. Yeah? You know, from climate change to food security to pandemic prevention to developing new medicines and so on and so forth. Yeah? And what all these challenges have in common is that they rest upon mathematical sciences. Yeah? None of these challenges can be solved without a strong input from mathematics and surroundings. Yeah? You know, you can just think about, I don't know, climate change. It requires solution of partial differential equations, it requires artificial intelligence, it requires input from physics, input from other disciplines, from chemistry, biology, and so on and so forth, because of all the implications that it has on health and so on. So everything is very, very complicated and very complex, and at the end of the day, mathematical. Yeah? So the point that I'm trying to make is that we really want to integrate mathematical sciences in the solution of the challenges that we want to address. Yeah? So that's very important. Yeah? And in order to do so, it's also relevant to keep in mind that NITEX has a multiple mandate. Yeah? And the mandate is, of course, to support research, but also training, engagement, and opening up to the African continent. Yeah? And those 4 pillars, according to our constitution, are supposed to have the same strength. Yeah? So really, it will be an institute that will cover the whole spectrum, yeah? From high school to teachers, to academia, to postgraduate students, to researchers, and so on and so forth. Yeah? So it's quite an ambitious program. Yeah? But it will only work if people come together and decide to work together and start speaking together. Yeah? I would like to mention another example. Yeah? You know, in my personal research, I like all things quantum. Yeah? And one of the technologies that are emerging is quantum computing. Yeah? And quantum computing will upset many things. Yeah? And one of the things that it will upset is the way in which we communicate securely these days. Yeah? When you buy something on the internet or you do banking, you see the little lock. Yeah? That system, once you have quantum computer, is not secure anymore. Yeah? So we need to come up with alternative solutions. And this is a problem that is not in the far future. It's a problem that we have now, because already now I can steal all your communication, even if I can't read it because it's encrypted, and just keep it in my solid state drive. And once I have the opportunity, I'll decode it. So the problem is already now. And it depends how long your secret have to be, how acute your problem is. You know, the mathematicians involved in cryptography are well aware of this, of course, and there are already post-quantum cryptographic protocols. But how many of us know how these post-quantum cryptographic protocols work? Not many. And this is just an example of why it's so important to train new generations of mathematical inclined scientists that have the tools to understand and develop these things, because there will be an acute need of cryptographers that know about these things, because we'll have to implement it everywhere, from your phone to your computer to your whatever, to your bank, to your online shop, or to your preferred online shop. So it is really, really important that that we pull all stops from training to research to address this. Another very important example is for instance, the developing of new pharmaceuticals. It's a very, very expensive business. But there are computer-aided design models to develop new drugs, but they are also very technical, in a mathematical sense, in a physical sense, in a chemical sense, in a biological sense. So it's really very important to develop a community of scholars, of researchers from different disciplines that try to work together. My preferred new word is that I would like NITEX to be an undisciplinary institute, where the challenges are at the top, and what tools we need to solve them becomes almost irrelevant. Undisciplinary doesn't mean that it is undisciplined. It just means that we need to cross the borders between the disciplines and maybe be less protective of our disciplines and put the challenge in front. There are lots of challenges, so it's not difficult to find a common ground that we want to attack. We probably won't be able to solve them all, but we should at least identify a handful where we want to make a difference. Because of you, I would also like to mention, because Africa is also relevant to NITEX. And NITEX joined forces almost 2 years ago with ICTP. So we have an MOU with ICTP to encourage interactions and exchanges. And with ICTP, we joined a recently formed cluster of research excellence around artificial intelligence, which is a project of ARUA, the Association of Research University in Africa, and the Guild, which is a similar association in Europe. And this is, I think, also important, because once it gives us access to funding opportunities that come from the European Union, and we have already started applying. And secondly, it also opens another channel to diffuse the NITEX spirit across Africa. Because I would like, if I still have a minute, to mention a few of the training activities that NITEX does, because there are many young people here that maybe might profit in one way or another. We invest lots of effort in building this community. So every Monday at 4, we have a colloquium that promotes one of the disciplines, and we instruct the speakers to speak in a way that goes across disciplines, so not too technical. We have monthly mini schools on specific topics. For instance, this month we are training students on how to use GPUs for high performance computing. We have formal schools. For instance, in end of January, we had a big school, summer school with the CHPC on programming and scientific computing skills. And we organized these schools in a hybrid way. So we had venues at all universities in the country. We broadcast the lectures. We provide every venue with tutors. And we reached around 900 students, over 2 weeks, training them from Linux to basic scientific computing. And this is the model that we want to continue. Together with our cluster of research excellence, we introduce master classes. So once a month, we have master classes around AI that are, again, in a hybrid format, open to everyone to attend. Some of the people sitting in the audience are very engaged in the training of high school learners and teachers. So we try really a 360-degree attack. But because NITEX doesn't appoint anyone, the only researcher appointed by NITEX is me for now, until the end of this month. What happens next month, I don't know. It only can do all these things because of the goodwill of its associates. So thank you very much as a representative of the associates that put a lot of effort in making it work. So these are my 2 bits and pieces. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Francisco. I like what you say and the opportunities that it brings, for example, for just infusing throughout the African continent. I like the concept of open science. Mmampei, I'm sure he's going to touch on some of these. We've got the African Open Science Platform at the NRF, which can provide a lot of support for everything that you've said as a panelist to strengthen these initiatives throughout the continent. But talking of the continent, we know Mmampei is a staunch supporter of activities and STI within the African continent. So it is by no surprise that she's now going to speak on building capacity on the African continent. Thanks, Mmampei.
Thank you very much, Thandi, for that introduction. So I've got a presentation which I have left with the organizers because I'm going to really run through it. There's so much to cover. And just going to give you a snapshot of the work that the DSI does to build capacity in Africa. So now for the dreaded pointer, it's been a challenge for everyone during the week. All right, let me do that. So why should the government of South Africa care about what happens in the continent? Why can't we just put up all of these programs and support South Africa's development? So we are directed by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation's Foreign Policy Mandate, which really speaks about building a better South Africa, in a better Africa, in a better world. So we cannot afford to develop South Africa alone as though it's an island. We are not an island. We have to think about the whole context. So the Foreign Affairs Policy Mandate really is anchored on 5 main priorities. I'm not going to speak to all of that, but with just the first one, consolidation of the African agenda. We have put together a white paper, a science and technology white paper, also premised on the foreign policy mandate, and it has it's got 10 policy intents. And I've put in bold the one that speaks about a Pan-African agenda, accelerating the implementation of the Pan-African STI agenda. So a lot of our programs then are built based on that premise. And they really try to expand internationalization of science, technology, and innovation through science diplomacy by attracting skills to South Africa and Africa, to fostering cooperation also with the African diaspora. So we also would like to tap on the descendants from the continent that are now based elsewhere. So we have what we call 5 branches within the DSI. And the third one focuses on international cooperation and resources. And we have 4 main strategic objectives. securing STI funds for the socio-economic development in South Africa and Africa. So for every R1 we invest in any program, we expect minimum 3 times the returns. And we have successfully done that, not just for South Africa, but for the continent as a whole. And I'll just quickly show you what some of those programs are that have enabled us to leverage this kind of funding. But we also really focused on enhancing international exposure and knowledge networks for researchers, for students, and we even go to learners in high schools in some programs in partnership with the Department of Basic Education. We also really, through our multilateral platform, so we serve in STI multilateral platforms both in and outside the continent. And this is with the aim of shaping a global STI discourse. We cannot afford not to be part of policy discussions globally, looking at the interest of South Africa, the continent, but developing countries as a whole. And of course, we support capacity development within the African continent. These are just high-level bullet points on the framework, STI framework for what we call science diplomacy in Africa. I'm not going to go through all of that, but in the end, we really like to portray the region and the continent as a preferred STI destination of choice for international funding partners, collaborators to see South Africa as the destination of choice. And in the end, that will end in job creation and in economic growth. We are also aligned to the STI strategy for Africa, the current version, the 2014-2024 strategy is going to be reviewed. We are part of that, ensuring that the priorities of the continent for the next 10 years really speak to taking care of the youth, building on the natural resources of the continent, and also ensuring that the continent as a whole leapfrogs into the future. So we have 26 formal STI agreements in Africa. And through our entities, the CSIR, the National Research Foundation, the Academy of Sciences of South Africa, and SANBI, we have MOUs that we sign with those countries in the continent. So if you're from any of these countries, speak to your governments about how we can support researchers' mobility, students' mobility, and access to funding, because we have formalized programs that enable us to do all of that. Just a quick slide. Perhaps this is one of the most important slides. It's the second last slide. I'm not going to be long of my presentation. And I try to really summarize some of the outputs that we have been able to achieve in our engagement. So like I said, we've got 26 STI agreements in Africa. We have funded a total of 21 joint calls in the last 10 years with 9 countries. And from those calls, we have funded 229 joint research projects across all STI fields. And we have invested 35 million rands from just the South African side. And like I said, our return on investment ratio is 1 to 3. So we've been able to leverage 3 times of that from international partners. We've just started with what we call innovation costs, because we really want to focus into the innovation ecosystem, building an innovation ecosystem for the continent. And we've done that with Tanzania, Egypt, and Mauritius. And we are working on the results. These are fairly new. But we want to expand this type of calls in the continent as well. We're supporting what we call an intra-Africa mobility program, where we twin South African historically disadvantaged institutions with institutions in the continent. We provide funding for researchers, for students to travel in the continent, to collaborate on joint research projects, and to support student exchange programs as well. I'm sure you all know about the Square Kilometer Array, which constitutes 8 African SKA partners. And the work that we've done there goes beyond just the research. So we started off with really ensuring that in each of the 8 SKA partners, We support the development of STI policies. We support infrastructure required to put up the radio telescopes. We provide training for scientists to be able to use the telescopes, and we also provide funding for researchers to travel between the 8 SKA African countries. We also have supported 71 African students through the astronomy training project, NASP, and we've supported 3 NEPAD flagship initiatives, AIMS being one of them, and over the years we've supported or invested over 90 million rands in AIMS alone. But collectively between ourselves and the Department of Higher Education, that is well over 120 million rands. And you know the results that AIMS has produced. And once again, congratulations to AIMS for those brilliant results. We've supported the Southern African National Biotechnology Institute. We've invested 94 million rands towards that, and currently we have 13 out of the 16 SADC member states active. Through that investment, we've attracted 26 industry academia relations, and that has resulted in 10 biotech enterprises that are fully operational and making a profit. The Southern African Network of Water Centers of Excellence, we've contributed about 22 million rands to date, and we have a total of 20 universities just in the SADC region that are part of that network. I will not even touch on the work done by entities. Safe to say, through the Academy of Sciences of South Africa, we are supporting development of science academies in the continent through the funding that the DSI receives. So the academy goes out to the continent, supports establishment of academies all the way from engaging with policymakers, with academia, and ensuring that we have independent academies that support research in those countries. The Center for High Performance Computing, based at the CSIR, has worked with not just the SKA partner countries, but with 8 more countries in the SADC region to build high-performance computing laboratories, has donated research infrastructure, has trained young scientists to operate those high-performing computers in those countries. NRF is really running a number of our flagship initiatives. I'm not going to list all of them. Thandi is here. You can talk to her at tea time. She will elaborate, but just to highlight a few, we also, within the continent, have established 10 research chairs through the OR Tambo Research Chairs Initiative. We have an initiative called the Science Granting Council Initiative, which now operates in 17 African countries. And these are national research funding institutions across the continent that come together, agree on research priorities, fund that research with the support and funding from other development agencies across the world. Thandi briefly spoke about the African Open Science Platform based at the NRF, which is our flagship institution for supporting open science as well. And that's another institution that we'd really like to support. We currently has 3 nodes in the continent, and we'd like to have it established more. We've supported research during COVID, provided funding through the Africa Rapid 19 COVID Fund, and we are seeing the benefits of some of those results as well. I must also indicate that we have ministerial guidelines that stipulate funding for foreign students that would like to study in South Africa. So we have a myriad of fellowships, bursaries that we fund between ourselves and the NRF to support African students that would like to study in South Africa. So that website that you see there will give you more information on those funding opportunities. So I'd like to stop here for now because I've only been given 5 minutes, but we have a lot that we do to support the continent with the aim of building capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mmampei. We've got a little bit of time to engage, so I'm going to open it up for discussion. One thing that I just want to highlight, Mmampei, is that maybe Neil knows about this with the SGCI, that IDRC is a good partner within the SGCI, and IDRC is based in Canada. So there are opportunities for the other countries to support intra-Africa mobility. So we're using that angle to get funding to get the continent going and integrated. So now I'm opening up for questions, comments, a discussion, and it's over to you, the audience. Hello. I'm sure you have. So I'm going to take 3 at a time. So there's one in front, and then David, and then behind this pillar, apparently there's a hand.
So thank you very much for all your presentations. My question will go for the Olympiads that you are organizing, because I'm from EMS Rwanda, and we are trying also to have that culture of organizing Olympiad and training young students on mathematics from secondary school to attend those competitions. My question to you is, how do you select the student from the different parts of the country, and how do you train them? Is it something that you do during the weekend, during holidays, or what is how does it work? Thank you.
I'll take the second question, just note that question. Second one, it was number 2 here.
Thank you. So as the speakers spoke, we slowly got broader and broader in terms of what they were covering. So somewhere in the middle is the identity of mathematics per se. I guess somewhere between Zurab and Francesco, around Loyiso. And then we got broader. But for me, that's a very important question within this community and what we've heard from other people. How important is it for mathematics to maintain an identity? Or are we just part of science?
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to ask to Prof. Kerstin based on the Olympiad. So I wanted to know if you were able to actually find the problem on why we're not able to compete national, and also what would be the problem. And also my other question is that, is it really based on resources, or is it based on how we approach in teaching mathematics that we can't be able to compete in a national level? Because if other nationals are able to have multiple students who can come and still be able to compete, what then are they doing which we are not doing on our side?
I'll take the 4th because you have the mic already.
Thank you. I'm Bruce Watson. I am the interim director of COE Maths. And this is actually a question directly to Francesco, and on how he would envisage the interaction and interface between COE Maths and NETHEX in future.
Right, thank you. Kerstin, you'd like to start?
Yes. So I'm going to start with the second question because I didn't quite understand. You mean why don't we compete effectively at the international level? Okay, we do though. We don't come first, but South Africa has done quite well over the years at the International Mathematics Olympiad. I think last year was one of our best performances ever. I can't remember exactly, but we came 44th, I think. So we're not one of the top countries. The competition is definitely very tough, but within the African context where we compete with in the Pan-African Mathematical Olympiad, it's a different team, it's not the same team. We use the Pan-African Olympiad as a development opportunity. So we have younger learners compete, etc. So we normally are in the top 3. But how to improve that performance? Well, I mean, to me, the issue isn't really about improving the performance per se. To me, it's really an issue of improving the diversity of the team that we send, so that it reflects our Rainbow Nation in a better way. So enough girls, enough people from all races, etc. And that really is about having the opportunity for development of learners across all schools, in all rural areas, etc. And that's a very difficult problem in South Africa because of the huge amount of under-resourced schools and us not even reaching into all of those schools. So that takes me to the next question. So the competitions are open to anybody. We work through our network of schools and the mathematics teachers, and we're trying the whole time to expand that. And we're trying to, as I explained, also not just have competitive-based activities, but also just enrichment activities. So in terms of involving your country in something like that, we'd be happy to support you. In fact, there's one funder that I know that if they actually do business in your country, they would be happy to also support you financially. But the route would be to work towards participating in the Pan-African Mathematical Olympiad after you have a national Olympiad, and then growing it from there. And there's a lot of support structures that we can help you with. We'd love to have you on board. So, but apart from your own national competition, we do have learners participating from African countries too in our Olympiad. So that is allowed.
Thank you. The next question was on how do we create mathematical identity, not just as part of science?
Yeah, a quick response. I think what we're describing in South Africa is replicated. I can just use one example internationally. Internationally, we have got the International Science Council, which is an umbrella body of associations, of academies in the natural sciences as well as in the humanities. And then within that umbrella body, the International Science Council, then there are these international bodies like the International Mathematical Union, I can't remember the one in physics, etc. So I think personally and strategically, it is important that, for instance, when we internationalize South African mathematics, then the first point of call, of course, would be sister organizations in other countries. Like the work, for instance, that we are doing, reaching out to the math societies, the statistical society, and so on. So the architecture that we have is not different to the one that we have internationally. I don't know,
And then the next question directly to you, Francisco.
No, thank you very much, Bruce, for the question, because that's a discussion that we will have to have. Yeah, and you know, we've already started collaborating. Yeah, we share each other's events. We started aligning the National Graduate Academy with our Theory and Computational School because we have exactly the same objective. And you know, if I look at your website and your research projects, you can map them almost one-to-one of the research page of NITEX. Yeah, so there is lots of overlap there. Yeah? So we will definitely have to start a discussion at some stage how we can not only align the graduate academy, but also the research and training activities and so on and so forth. Yeah? And you know, up to the 31st of March, my focus is just to get NITEX up and running. When that is done, we can start maybe formalizing also the collaboration and joint activities and so on, and sharing of resources and so on and so forth. Yeah?
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Can I take the last round of questions? Just maybe 3 only, and then we go to summarize. So this one first, number 1, 2, and there was a third one. Sorry, we behind the pillar. There's one there. Yes. this pillar. So there's one, you are 1, 2, 3.
Okay, my question is to you as president of Mathematical Society. I mean, you presented some deep things about how, from Gauss and how mathematics is being taught now. I'm not sure whether he was boxed into the kind of structured way that we have in our current education system. How do we reinvent and allow young people to get the opportunity to deliberate deeply on mathematics rather than rushing through? I mean, it's at AIMS we are trying to reinvent the way we think about the university of the 21st century, especially in Africa. And I want to hear some thoughts from you, especially even going back down to high schools. How do we do this? Yes.
Thanks. I'm great to see everybody on there. I'm Fukosi. I'm at the University of Pretoria. I'm not a mathematician. But I'd wanted to get some thoughts, maybe from foundations also all the way to Mmampei there, on how the role of grassroots movements have been seen here. We've kind of the conversations here have been more institutionalized. And the things we experience, if I were like either deep learning Indaba had, Masakane had, is that for a lot of the students who are within these systems around even AIMS, they are also supported a lot on the side of the grassroots. It's been great being here for the last couple of hours, just meeting a lot of students who just keep on coming up and saying, hey, you know, I'm part of Masakane, I'm part of the Indaba, or whichever way. So it'll be great to also maybe have a bit of comments from the team on the stage about where that fits in, because I don't think it can be ignored. It's not free labor, right, in some ways. There's people who are also filling in the gaps that I think also Prince is talking about here.
Right, right. Thank you. Third one at the back, that's the last question.
Okay. No, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
My question is actually directed to Professor Kerstin as well regarding the Mathematics Olympiad. Whenever somebody speaks about Mathematics Olympiad, I like to reference the story of Professor Terence Tao, whom I think actually credits his field medal to the Mathematics Olympiad. So in your presentation, you indicated that in Africa we now have the first IMO medal holder. So now, what is the foundation going to do, or is the foundation going to monitor that particular student's progress to ensure that in the mathematics fraternity we preserve such talent? Because I believe the theme of Siyakhula is growing mathematics in Africa. So I believe that will be one of the steps that we take as a foundation. Because last year I actually coordinated the SATMO at my campus, and the participants, all the participants that were there are actually from the accounting sciences, so which was a bit of a concern for me. So my base question is, what's the foundation going to do to ensure that we preserve a talent like that student from Soweto who's now an IMO medal holder? Thank you.
Right. Who would like to start? Kerstin, maybe yours. Kerstin, yours is fresher.
All right, so just for those of you that don't know, SATMO is the South African tertiary was it the tertiary or the team?
It was a tertiary mathematics Olympiad, yes.
Competition. So there also is a teams at school level, and that's not with time limits, just so that you know. It's teams working together to do problem solving. We do try and stay in contact with what I call alumni. We need to do more of that to follow what happens to them. As far as I remember, Khaukhelo has gone into computer science, so that to me is still mathematical science. But they don't stay necessarily as mathematicians. They go into all kinds of careers. Many of them become actuaries. Mark Shuttleworth was a alumni of the Maths, we have some of our international, thanks, some of our international, I'm not doing very well, team members. I know I followed up at one stage about some of our early international team where they were twins, two girls, that did really well in the International Maths Olympiad, and they actually now are in the UK, both of them. So we can't prevent that movement. We just try and encourage them to get into careers wherever they go into the world, where they get to shine. So to me, the focus has been on just getting them to consider those careers and realizing that they have potential to do those. And whether they become accountants or mathematicians or engineers, that's not for me to influence, I feel.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Next question, Zurab. How do we reinvent?
Thank you very much for that question. So there is this joke about the difference between a mathematician and a philosopher. One needs, the task of mathematician is very humble. I mean, the profession is very humble because you only need pen, paper, and garbage bin. But for philosophers,
you need your brain.
and eraser as well, yes. But for philosophers, it's even more humble because you don't need the garbage bin. But although it's very important to throw something in the garbage when you do mathematics, when you solve a mathematical problem, there is one very important rule that we follow, but we maybe never conceptualize this. When you spend pages of solving this the problem and you see that it doesn't solve, and you know that you have to give another attempt, you don't throw these pages yet. You first give another attempt, find the solution, and then you throw those pages afterwards. And why is that important? Because it might be that not all of it was nonsense. It might be that some of it is still relevant. You might have forgotten even, and you have to go back halfway and continue different directions from there. So, but why do I bring this analogy? Because it is clear, it is absolutely clear that something is not working in the education system for mathematics and in our interactions with. But now, we shouldn't try to fix this by trying to eliminate the current system and then afterwards thinking, okay, what can we replace it with? So instead, what should be done is that we have to think of the solution while the system is in place, experiment, just like we approach mathematical problem solving, and once we know that we have something that's better, then start slowly integrating it. We actually, in Mathematical Society, we started a division, thanks to the leadership of Sirin Ratilal. We call it the Future Mathematicians Program. So in this program, we are co-learners together with the students. We want to learn how to do it the right way. So we explore mathematics together with the students. We explore how to engage in mathematical exploration with somebody who is so young, and they explore what we suggest them to explore. Anyway, so if anyone is interested to join us, you should please talk to Dr. Ratilal.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, just the last question that I would like to give attention to is recognition of grassroots movements. And quickly, please, because the program director is on my case.
Just a quick one. And thank you very much, Mukosi, for raising the problem. Yeah? I believe that what we need to achieve is creating an ecosystem. Yeah? Sometimes I had discussions with members of the DSI. They prefer more the word platform. Yeah? But in my opinion, platform is the bank has a platform. You can't do much on that platform. Yeah? You can only do what the bank wants you to do. Yeah? So what we need is an ecosystem. Yeah? And the ecosystem, one crucial component is the grassroots. Yeah? without the buy-in of the community, of the grass, we can't do anything. Yeah, so that's fundamental. Yeah, and on the suggestion of movement, I have a suggestion for Zurab. Yeah, and for the gentleman that asked the question. Yeah, you know, you are complaining that mathematics education is fast and superficial. Yeah, and that reminded me of what happened in Italy long ago, when McDonald's opened the first fast food chain in Rome. Yeah? That led to the development of the slow food movement. Maybe you guys need a slow math movement.
Slow math. On that note, colleagues, I know do you want to say something?
Yeah, just quickly, thank you, Vukosi, for that question. And Prof, you'd be glad to know that the word innovation ecosystems is now the buzzword in DSI. So we are restructuring ourselves to better respond to the entire holistic needs of society and looking at how we can structure our programs to an ecosystems kind of an approach, including specialized funded programs that look at grassroots, whether it's movements, contributors, the entire value chain. So yeah, just look for this space, look up.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm now having the difficult task to summarize this and come up with just a few points. So we've heard from Kerstin. I think everything goes back to the question of how do you create belonging. It actually answers all these questions, and I think your question, David, on the actual identity as a mathematician or mathematical science person, it answers this question. Kerstin, I like your board that is so diverse, that it actually reflects society and the inputs that you require from society. But you've got programs, careers in mathematics, showcases, and you've got the math challenges, competitions from Olympiads, then you take them through. So I think what we perhaps the conversation that we could have is how do we measure the impact even on how people choose these careers, their careers now that there's been these interventions, and where do they go? Are their fields diverse enough? Are they filtering throughout the continent? But I think you've got some answers to some of those. And Prof. Nongxa, you spoke about maths is omnipotent. So we understand that mathematics is everything. And we look for outputs from your alliance. And my question was actually going to ask, what has the alliance done so far? Is it still plans or the strategy? But we can answer that during lunch. And Francisco, thank you very much for your contributions on open science approach. You said you want what did you call it? Undisciplinary. I've heard of multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, but undisciplinary, I think it's quite progressive, and we look forward to NITHEC's contribution. Zurab, I understand your point about we need opportunities to engage deeply with the subject. But I think we would need a seminar or a couple of webinars on what to do to engage deeply. Are we looking at cohort models? Are we looking at regional approaches? Are we how can we do this to engage deeply? Because we have to go slow if we're going to engage deeply. You've got some specific sessions, okay. And then Mmampei, thank you very much for the opportunity to learn about the capacity building initiatives in the continent. One thing that's still a pain with us in the continent is intra-Africa mobility. It's expensive, it's not fully funded, because the continent is so vast. It's a big continent, 64 countries. It's the visa challenges. Intra-Africa mobility requires an approach on its own in the discussion. So, Rejoice, what I could say about each and every one of these topics, and that if I were to put 3 bullet points for each of one, under targeting the most talented learners, I would say we need to identify and nurture talented learners, as Kerstin had said, provide specialized programs, resources, reach remote areas, establish and continue with the competition, scholarships, and recognition platforms that you do. On the bridging the school mathematics and mathematics in higher education, I think what you mean, Zurab, is develop seamless curriculum transitions from school to higher education and go slow. And, and foster collaborations between schools, universities, and industry. I think you touched on that point, Professor Nongxa, on the industry-academia collaborations. And the third point on challenges of stakeholders. One thing I would have liked to engage you on is the issue of infrastructure and resource constraints in higher education. We didn't have enough time to talk about that. But you are advocating for encouraging interdisciplinary collaborations, even with institutions and organizations. And the fourth one on the cutting edge provisioning, mathematical science provision, is investment in R&D of innovative mathematical concepts. I think this is what I'm hearing. Tools and techniques, supporting centers of excellence, and partnerships so that we can leverage global expertise and resources. The last one on building capacity on the African continent. What's coming out from me is we need to expand access to quality mathematics education across the continent. We've got platforms that do that in a global scale. We need to continue with the policy interventions so these things can filter through our delivery partners within the continent. So we also need to support initiatives that train and empower mathematics educators and support collaboration between governments, academia, industry, and civil society, as we've just heard now. So with those few points, thank you very much for your indulgence, and please give a round of applause to my panelists. Thank you. There's a surprise. Must they stay here or can they go? Okay. Oh, you'd like them to stay. Okay. It's a surprise for me too. So
firstly, Thandi, thank you for the great job you did. It was a fabulous engagement. We're very grateful for your time and effort. So we have a surprise. Kerstin shared with us that the South African Mathematics Foundation has a birthday too. So another birthday to add to our list. So happy birthday to the South African Mathematical Foundation. And we just want to acknowledge Kerstin's incredible leadership. Happy birthday.